Hello, everybody. It's Glennis, and welcome to Mindfulness Mondays. It's been a while, Beverly. It's so good to see you.
It sure has been a while.
Yes, it has.
Good to see
We have
you.
an interesting topic, though. I know you've had some time to think about some things and to reflect, and you and I were talking just the other day about some of the things that we've learned from an emotional wellness standpoint, maybe in other standpoints as well, definitely, when it came to the pandemic and how it's impacted us. So I'm looking forward to hear your thoughts about that.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. This is our new time at 2 o'clock. Um, there's so much I want to say about it, and I really hope that this is like a little bit of a launch of some ongoing discussions, some ongoing insights, even questions about what has happened, what did we learn from it, what did we actually survive, what can we look forward to, because it is certainly not over, and it's changed everything. Actually, it has been a year since the landscape of America has changed. Our lives and the lives of Americans and people everywhere around the world has been impacted in one way or another. Uh, the point of containment of this COVID virus in this country was missing. Oh my God, the price we paid has been devastating. We lost, as you probably know, more than 500,000 people, citizens, including beloved family members and friends and neighbors, and the numbers are still growing, unfortunately and tragically. We've lost businesses, incomes, homes, lifestyles, certain privileges, and the list goes on and on and on. But since the elections, we are making some progress, actually, quite a bit, in my estimation, in safety equipment and accommodations for the various healthcare centers or stations, the supplies to care for the sick, the vaccine is actually exceeding expectation. Funding is being plowed in to put food back on tables and to help people pay rents and mortgages and helping businesses get back on their feet. And there is talk and hope of getting back to some degrees of normalcy, whatever that means for people is different for all of us in terms of what we've changed from, shift or lost, or perhaps will not be doing again. Some people use the term in that question, what are we going to do in the aftermath of COVID 19? It's a legitimate question, but others, myself included, we ask the question differently, and that is, what are we going to do in the wake of COVID 19? I say wake because the impacts of it, the financial, the social, the relational, the physical health, especially the mental health issues, those things are going to be with us for a while. So it's not really over. There's a wake. And now I use wake because descriptively I want you to imagine or visualize this. You're standing on the back of a speedboat, or you're standing on the back of a major line cruise ship, uh, and there's that wake in the water, uh, that has divergent factors like the speed and the motion and the power and the strength of that water, causing the waves to crest very, very roughly. The wake can create turbulence. The ripples continue on, such that the effects, the impact, and the consequences of 19 resemble that to me, because there is wake, there's still residual impacts from this virus that we will be with for a while. And to me, as a human service provider who works with thousands of human service providers, there's so much more work for us to do yet. So, over the next few Mondays, I hope if you engage in this conversation with us, Lennis and I want to talk about the wake of COVID 19. I want to talk about that in spite of the year of dismantlement and grief and anger and shock and unbelief and the confusion and the outrage, the disappointments and the god awful inconveniences. Uh, in many ways, I want us to realize we survived. That's one of the things I want us to think. This is part of the new learning, that we actually, those of us who are fortunate enough to survive that virus, we survive. So, what did it take? What are our key learnings? And I'm making these very, very personal because, in a way, I want these, when we look at these, for this to be a bit of an encouragement for you. Uh, in spite of everything, we figured out things. We made massive amounts of adjustments. We recreated, we re-envisioned multiple aspects of our lives to get through. We learned that we could manage without a playbook. I talked to countless managers and directors and supervisors who were trying to hold their organizations together, and they were kind of making it up to go because there was no playbook for COVID. Yet you did it. It was hard, but you did it. Even in our own homes, trying to figure out things without answers. We learn that we can survive even when we don't have all the answers we'd like to have. Ooh, and grown people like to have some answers. They want to know when, who, what, how long. But we didn't have that yet. You still survive. We learn that not being in control, and that it has different factors for different people. Being in control is a powerful thing for some people, and it's in degrees. It's in degrees, but we learned that not being in control is still survivable, because we weren't, not this time. Without the information, the misinformation, the confused information, we were greatly humbled by the myriad of experiences that we faced with the COVID-19, and therefore we learned that we are stronger people than previously thought. I mean, I met people, we cried, and we sometimes woke up in the morning with so much emotional exhaustion we didn't even think we could face the day because of all of those factors. But we survived. Therefore, we learn that we're strong people, we're capable people. So, this is an ideal time when I'm in my part of my launching for further discussion, if you will, to take stock and to journal our new learnings, your new learnings. Examine areas where you recreated key areas in your own lives, in the lives of those who you were sharing or supporting or caring for. Consider those things that you like to do, what you love to do, what you want to continue uh, as we move forward. And also examine those things that did not serve your best interests before COVID. Uh, they went away. Do you really, really want to pick them back up and resume them? Consider that. Let's just look at that. Let's learn about that. We've got choices. We always have. You may not have felt like it, but we did. Some people say that they lost so many freedoms, and theoretically, you could say that. But I believe we always had the freedom to come up with the next best thing. So that's what I wanted to say, and I hope it launches a conversation, further discussion to look at and examine other possibilities about it. And I'm going to entertain some questions from you, Lynn. That's just a couple because I want to keep this short today. But there's a lot to talk about the wake of COVID, what we've learned, and where we go forward with the new learnings. One of the questions I ask myself when I hit the wall, when things become very difficult, I never ask, why did this happen to me? I always ask, what am I supposed to learn from this?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You're right. It has been interesting. I think that many of us have taken for granted not so much the survival, but the way that we survived, the way
Mm-hmm.
we rose to the occasion and tried to make the best out of a situation that wasn't good. I think that we need to give ourselves grace and credit for that, because overall, as a nation, we made the best out of a situation that really could not have been imagined. You
Mm-hmm.
see it in the movies, and you've always talked about what if, but the fact that it was really at our door. When you think about it, this time last year, we were still reeling from the fact that we couldn't go to church on Easter Sunday or whatever it was that you do during that time of the year. No Easter hunts, no stores to go buy little dresses or little things like that we've just taken for granted. I mean, yeah, I guess we could have ordered it from Amazon, and many did. But the idea of driving by and throwing out a basket out the window, I mean, things like that you just never thought that you would think, oh, that's silly. But we were taking that pretty seriously. There were many people who did not see their loved ones. And this was the first, right around this time, was the first major holiday where we
Mm-hmm.
began making that lifestyle sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess one thing that I learned is how amazing we can be as human beings in terms of devising ways to still be intact. And I'm not talking electronically, I'm talking about spiritually.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah, I'm talking about spiritually. And I
That
know
was
that,
that was key.
yeah, I know there
Mhm.
are some people that are still suffering,
Of
emotionally and
course.
spiritually with anxiety and
Mhm.
depression. And some
Mhm.
of these situations have been exacerbated as a result of what has happened. But there have been others who may have suffered from those things, and somehow or other they were able to pull themselves up by the bootstraps, so to speak, and find a way to be better during this time. One thing that really struck me that I hadn't really thought about because it wasn't my reality. I was on Clubhouse listening to a young woman who was about 28 or so. She works for an IT company. So I'm thinking 28, works for an IT company. She makes a lot of money. She's in San Francisco. She said she had not hugged anybody for over a year
That's true.
because her parents are elderly and they
Mhm.
live in the East Bay, in California. She lives in San Francisco in a high rise. She used to go into work.
Actually, Dennis, I have not hugged anybody in a year either, and I'm a hugger.
And
Many other people
yeah,
got that
well, you
story.
know, your son neither. Your
No, we get in the house and
oh my
we hug
goodness,
her. No,
because
because he goes out occasionally for his work and comes back, so he wouldn't come near me. We just do this or throw a kiss.
okay, because he's still going to work. That's right. Well, that's
Yes,
told me that there are some people that haven't hugged for a year.
millions.
Here's the other thing I wonder about. Maybe this is something we can talk about next time around. Because there's been a lack of contact, because our lives have been in such an upheaval in terms of where we would normally go for spiritual and emotional support. Could that have added to how people reacted on January 6th? How people have been
You
reacting
know
and
what? There's a whole conversation about how some people reacted to that, but there is no pigeonhole answer to that. It's a myriad of reasons,
not
personalities,
not to
experiences.
justify it, not to
No, no,
justify
no,
it,
no,
but I'm
no.
just
I'm not
wondering.
justifying. I'm not talking
Just,
about that at all. I'm
yeah,
just saying
yeah,
where people were emotionally could have been a scope of things that would have caused that kind of reaction. But certainly the anger, the rage, the frustration with what things were going, what was happening to them, and where to place the blame or not to place the blame, or where the expectation was it would get better, is a myriad of things. And I'm always cautious about that because I'm not. I know you're not trying to justify it. I'm just saying you can't put your finger on any one, two, three, four, or five things.
yeah.
The number of those people, it had to be as vast as the Mississippi. I use this example in some trainings when I said, okay, so we're standing in this room and it's like say 70 of us. I say an accident happens in this room, and at the same time we all see it. An emergency response people come into this room and then they want to investigate what happened, and they're going to ask all 70 of us, what did you see? How many variations are they going to get?
Mhm.
And the wise people say 70 variations of the same thing.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
it's other people's experiences. It's all over. But nah,
Well,
it's a
I want
lot.
to, I want to challenge everyone that has been listening to this to really
Mhm.
consider joining us in journaling on some of your new learnings. We would love to hear that when we come
Mhm.
back time next week. We'll be back again at 2 o'clock, our new time, 2 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. We'd love to hear. We'd love to share. And I think there's something cathartic about it and healing, being able to write things out, some of your feelings, because some of these things we probably haven't even allowed ourselves to think too much about because we're too busy surviving it. Um,
Mhm.
too busy in the doing. But at
Mhm.
some point in time, as part of our recovery from all of this trauma, we have to just stop and just be for a minute in our feelings and begin to realize, okay, this is how I'm feeling. I mean,
Mhm.
when the young woman said that, I hadn't really thought about that in that way because my daughter, who would have been by herself, she came here to California. She lived in DC. She came to California. That was one of the first things we all thought about is Imani needs to come home. She needs to come home instead of being cooped up in that apartment. And because my babies were all safe and home, I didn't even think about what there are others who couldn't go anywhere, who had
Mhm.
to stay home. And just wondering how that impacts their overall interpersonal. And she said that she's not paranoid or anything like that, but she has other friends in her life or people in her life who are, and so she has to respect that. So when she sees them now, that even people are wearing masks and everything else, and it's still like the one bump kind of thing, although she
Mhm.
wants to hug. It's like it's definitely changed. And there was a leader of ours at one time who said that he always thought that shaking hands was barbaric, but I always thought that shaking hands was a way to have some kind of appropriate contact, connect with another human being. And so now we're kind of like, oh, I don't know, so yeah, it's traumatic, but it also has really impacted us in a way where some of the things that we were so used to doing without thinking, we just don't do anymore.
Mhm. It's a
So
lot of science data are looking on so many factors in the wake of this, and there's a high number of depressed people and suicidal people just for the loss of human touch.
hmm,
The human skin is the heaviest organ on the body. All the sensory pathways come in. The absence of that, when you were used to being affectionate, has caused serious mental health issues for a number of people. So it's a lot to talk about, Linus. Thank you for inviting that.
absolutely, and we'll be back next week at
Mhm.
2:45. I'm sorry, 2:45, 2 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I don't know where 2:45 came from. 2 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time, which would be 5 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. We're going to keep talking about this because I think this is important to talk about the things we have learned during this pandemic, because it definitely has changed our lives forever. Some might think, change our lives forever for a bad way. But I would venture to say, if you give it some thought, there's some good things that may have come out of this as well.
Yes,
Thanks,
same here.
Beverly. Thanks so much. And
Thank
I'll see you all
you.
next week. Thank you so much for being with us. And we will see you again next week at 2 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. Have a blessed and wonderful rest of this week.